لا الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم صل على سيدنا ونبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم في الأولين، وصل اللهم وسلم وبارك على حبيبنا ونبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم في الآخرين. اللهم صل على سيدنا ونبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم كلما ذكره الذاكرون الأبرار وكلما غفل عن ذكره الغافلون. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who knows what we reveal and knows what we conceal and even knows what the animals feel. We thank him, we praise him, and on him we have reliance. It is to him we only turn to for true guidance. We ask him to send his peace, his blessings, his mercy on the best of human beings and prophets, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on whom be praise until the very end of our days. We ask him steadfastness, guidance, mercy, and to never lead us astray, and for him to save us on Judgment Day. Say Ameen. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless everyone who has joined us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless those who have organized this, and alhamdulillah for keeping us in the state of reflection in this beautiful month of Ramadan. Interestingly enough, subhanAllah, this is a very unique Ramadan, as everyone has experienced. And it's in the uniqueness of it where you see the blessings, right? Oftentimes we may not reflect on some of the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, and we may think that certain things are bad, or certain things are miserable or horrible in its complete essence sense. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا فَيَجْعَلَ اللَّهُ فِيهِ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا. And then you might dislike something, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put a lot of good in it. So this is the case with many things in our lives, that we sometimes judge based on the apparent. And obviously, no one is happy with the coronavirus pandemic. This is natural. And also understanding that everyone's situation is different. And there are people, subhanAllah, that may live in the same city, and you have completely different experiences. People who are in poverty, people who are in need. And this is a time when Islam teaches us to rise to the occasion and to take care of the weakest amongst us, and those who don't have a voice, and those who don't actually reach out. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about a level of helping others that يَحْسِبُهُمُ الْجَاهِلُ أَغْنِيَاءَ, a level of poor that people think that they're actually rich or well off. But لا يسألون الناس إلحافا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that they don't ask other people out of dignity and the sense of obviously not showing that they want to ask others. Those are the people that we should actually seek the most. People who will tell you, no, I don't want anything, I don't want anything. And then those people actually need it the most. You give it to them and say, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you in your khair and dunya. This is what Islam teaches us, to rise up in these occasions. As we see, look at the opposite. The opposite is a huge market of people that are trying to get rich off of a pandemic, trying to get rich off of the backs of the normal society. The 1%, rarely will, unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mercy on them and has given them a sense of understanding, will then seek in these times to help humanity. What did Allah bless them with? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, then give from the wealth we made you mustakhlafina fi. We made you responsible over. So this money that we think is ours, I earned with my own heart, etc., and all this other stuff, is actually a responsibility to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, we're not a capitalistic society where we would sell our own family for money, and neither are we a socialist society in communism where everyone is the same. A doctor and someone who did not study are equal. No, our faith believes that you earn the hard earned money and investments that you make, but you have a responsibility to society. Hence the zakat system, hence sadaqah and charity. Hence in these times that we should rise to the occasion and to help others. And now, why am I mentioning this in light of this discussion, you might ask? It has completely everything to do with what we're talking about. Our discussion here is divine GPS, spirituality, and addiction. And one of the greatest forms of unfortunate addiction is people's addiction to money. And all of this has to do with hawa, which means one's carnal desires and inclinations. The inclination to want, right, and not stopping at anything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنْ جَعَلُ هَوَاهُ, have you seen the one who has made their desires as their gods? Have you seen the one who has made their desires as their gods? Meaning they obey them to the level of complete obedience. And who is they? They is the idols of the soul. No longer do we see the notion that there are physical idols in some parts of the world. Alhamdulillah, in other parts of the world, people have accepted Islam from idolatry. So shaitan, the Prophet ﷺ has said that he has given up, that the ummah of Muhammad ﷺ will go back to shirk. This is a hadith of Rasulullah ﷺ. So that means the vast majority of ummah Muhammad ﷺ cannot be blamed that they're committing shirk and things like that. And this is extremism. People who go out and say that others commit shirk, and we should stay away from this word and attributing it to Muslims. But one of the problems is that people's hearts will become attached to spiritual idolatry. Spiritual idolatry is narcissism, love of wealth, and lust, gluttony, all of these type of sins. Even, by the way, in the Christian tradition, they call them the 7 major sins, or you could say al-kaba'ir, as mentioned by Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. But our kaba'ir are mentioned differently, as the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam mentioned, the major sins. But these sins, they say the carnal sins, among them is lust and gluttony, right? So this notion of following your hawa that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has described for us is something that we need to be very serious about. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions it in the Quran in a number of ayat about being very careful and how a uncontrolled hawa can lead you to ultimate doom and demise and misery. These 3 things. Okay, doom, demise, and misery. Doom is complete loss of your life and a control over it. And demise, maybe it will cause a person to completely be lost. And misery, because people think that unfortunately their hawa will lead them to happiness. And unfortunately, the reality is that it does not. It does not. Now, there was a very interesting author. His name is Neil Postman, who wrote a book in 1987 called Amusing Ourselves to Death. Amusing Ourselves to Death. The harm of the media and you could say these external digital relationships and how it's causing our demise. And it's a very, very powerful book. In this book, he describes something very interesting. He said, it's my intention in this book to show that a great media metaphor shift has taken place in America. And he obviously uses America as a foundation because that's where he lives. But other than that, mashallah, you all in Nigeria, you can benefit from this. But I want you to, when you read, don't be stuck in a colonized mindset. What is a colonized mindset? That civilization is in the other side. That why are other people better than us? You should look and read your history. Look at the Sokoto Caliphate. Look at the benefit of how many ulama and scholars and teachers and great people came from your country. So you don't have an inferiority complex and constantly looking at the other side, the North and the West and other places, thinking that they have something that you don't and you need to aspire to it. No. We take, as the Prophet ﷺ says, al-hikmatu dal al-mu'min, dalat al-mu'min, that which is wisdom is the lost animal of the believer. So wherever they find it, they benefit from it, just like we're benefiting from Neil Postman here. He says, it has become that much of our public discourse has become dangerous. He says what? Dangerous nonsense. Much of our discussions have become dangerous nonsense. With this in view, my task in this chapter is straightforward, to demonstrate how under the governance of the printing press, remember this is 1987, he doesn't know about MySpace. Remember, I don't know if you guys know MySpace. He doesn't know about Facebook, and then he doesn't know about, now we have Twitter, then we have Instagram. He doesn't know about, this is 1987, this was a long time ago. SubhanAllah, a lot of what he has said, still to this day. He says, is different from what it is now. Before it was reading, people had to read. And subhanAllah, I was listening to a lecture yesterday. Do you know that in America, the opinion editorial section of the newspaper back in the 1700s and 1800s is studied now in America as literature? Somebody's opinion editorial back then is now studied as literature. Whereas if you look at the opinion op-ed sections of newspapers today, where somebody just writes an opinion that the newspaper allows, sometimes complete nonsense. Somebody just saying complete nonsense. But in reality, the lecturer, he said something very powerful. He's like, the problem is that we can no longer structure a compound sentence anymore. Everybody's sentences are either cut off, there's no complete thought. The ability to communicate has become completely messed up, right? He says it has become shriveled and absurd. And he says, in studying the Bible as a young man, I found intimations of the idea that forms of media favor particular kinds of content and therefore are capable of taking command of a culture. So they understood that the media and things that you expose yourself to, the input that you have in your life, it controls your mind, my brothers and sisters. It dictates your emotions. It dictates even your character. Why? There is no possible way someone can claim, I'm watching and listening to music and movies, and I know the lines from Harry Potter, and I know the lines from Star Wars, and I can tell you what happened in Braveheart and all these movies, right? Where it's to such an extent where it's the only thing on your playlist is you're listening to these things, and then you say that I'm not affected by them. It's just some entertainment. That's impossible. Impossible. Someone that's constantly putting this in their ears, how can they not then affect their emotions? Why? I will ask you that people, when they want to desire an emotion, they will put on a song that will put them, quote unquote, in the mood. So for example, even when people have intimacy now, they're putting on a particular song. Why? Because it affects a person's mood and mindset. So he's similarly saying to you that it is a strange injunction to include as an ethical system that our media, right, it assumed a connection between forms of human communication and the quality of a culture. It's a very powerful statement that what we input affects the kind of culture that we have. And look at the culture that we have now. Everyone is watching, and I've seen those Nigerian clips of your shows. They're very funny, right? Everybody knows about them. So don't think it's just something in Nigeria. Everyone knows the quality of shows in Nigeria is very addicting. People, all they do is spend their entire day watching on YouTube some of these things. And this is what's dangerous, the addiction to it. The addiction to it. He said, every media has resonance. There's a beautiful study that was done. Dr. Koos, he said, reviewed the latest research on a topic and showed that social media use for a minority of individuals is associated with a number of psychological problems, including anxiety, depression, loneliness, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and addiction. Because social media is most frequently accessed via smartphones, their usage is intimately intertwined, and their mobile nature contribution to excessively checking habits, which often results from what is called as the fear of missing out, FOMO. Let me repeat that again. Social media is frequently accessed and is intimately tied to how mobile nature contributes, meaning using your phone contributes to excessive checking habits, which often drives what is called FOMO, the fear of missing out. And what is that driven for? This addiction to social media. I want to share with you all something, inshallah. So can I have Nasser please can you allow or a panelist with my name on it? I'm going to be joining again. So I want to share my screen, inshallah. There's going to be another panelist called Hasib Noor. That's me, okay? So let me just. I'm going to be joining now, and I'll raise my hand. So please just screen share. What I want to share with you all, inshallah, on the screen. Okay, I've raised my hand. Shuraim, excuse me. If you could please make it panelist.
Yeah, I just added it to the panel.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to share with you my screen, inshallah. I want you all to see something. Maybe it will look familiar to you, okay? I can't share my screen now, so you have to make me a co-host. You have to make me co-host, Habibi. Not just a panelist. Okay, great. All right, well, it's not letting me. But in any case, I want to share with you all, inshallah ta'ala, this screen, okay? And that is what it says, what anxiety might look like. What anxiety might look like, okay? So what I will do is I will read it to you, okay? And it's a very funny screen. I'll share it maybe with Nasser, he can put it up maybe. And it says on there what anxiety looks like. Number one, irritability. When people are very irritable, right? When a person's so much on the phone like this, and someone's calling them and they say, "Hey," and they're like, "What? What do you want?" And then very irritable, and they get angry. Okay. Obsessive behaviors, and the picture of is on a computer, and the screen says, "Are you sure you want to watch this again?" I don't know if you've seen the comments of some people. "Man, this movie was so amazing. I've watched it 3 times. I've watched it 4 times. I've watched it 7 times." What kind of, like, okay, once, fine. You've done something for entertainment, but you become obsessive over it, this fanaticism, right? Dizziness and numbness. So when a person is away from it or spends too much time, they get a massive headache. It's not just being worried, but rather it's affecting your mindset as well. Overscheduling and overworking. So you have so much time you spend on one thing, you lose time on other things that you're overscheduling. All right. Overindulgence. So there's a picture of a donut and French fries. What happens when people engage in this kind of addiction is that they start having a sense of what they call comfort eating. That's what they say. Like when we come out of the pandemic, everyone's going to be 15, 20 pounds heavier because everybody's comfort eating. There's a sense of anxiety, constantly watching the news, constantly watching this. So what are they doing? Eating, consuming many, many things. Sleepless and insomnia. So there's a very funny meme, right? Person has the screen on, and it's nighttime. The only thing that's shining is this bright light straight into their face, and the top says, "I don't know why I can't sleep." There's direct studies that have shown of what constantly seeing a screen does to the light imbalances input in your mind. So you think that it's daytime longer because of the light that's coming straight to your face. Whereas if you turn off the light, make it complete dark, and then put your phone away, you will see that this will help you in your insomnia. And it won't at first, I'll be honest with you. Why? Because you've trained your body so long for light that it's going to take you a long time for you to get used to it. But it will help you, inshallah azza wa jal. And some people, they really have insomnia where they need to take medicine. So in any case, it can cause this kind of imbalance of sleep. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we have made the night as a cover. As a cover of what? Complete darkness, so you can sleep. Right? Lack of concentration. So because you're so intent on seeing the messages being in one sentences, like on Instagram, like on Instagram, like on Instagram. You can't read more than five sentences. You become irritated and you lose concentration. Everybody's concentration is now 7 minutes versus 7 hours where it used to be. They can sit and read a book, for example. And avoidance. So there's a picture of a book, reading books I'm reading to escape reality, but it's fine. So there's a picture of books, and then there's a picture of a phone. And what happens is you don't engage in things that are spiritual and intellectual ghadha, or nourishment. Okay, in any case. So this is all describing a level of the problems. What I want to also discuss here is what is the spiritual cure for all of this? So first and foremost, the scholars of Islam spoke about this at great length. This is nothing new to Islam. Alhamdulillah, we have in Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مَا فَرَّطْنَا فِي الْكِتَابِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. Right? وَلَكِنْ أَكْثَرُ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we have not let anything in this book except that we have clarified it. We have never been short in mentioning all things that you need in life in this book. Okay? So this comes from the word hawa. Hawa is following your carnal desires, your inclinations. I'll tell you what it means, but first I want to describe to you two statements of great scholars. Two statements of great scholars. One of them is Imam al-Ghazali, rahimahullah, who spoke about how to deal with spiritual cures for addiction in his book Ihya Ulum al-Din, as well as Ibn al-Jawzi in his book called Dhamm al-Hawa and a book that's, both of them are all translated. One of them is called Disciplining the Soul. You can find it online by Ibn al-Jawzi and Ibn al-Qayyim as well. Anyway, many scholars wrote on this. But Imam al-Ghazali, rahimahullah, he wrote a book to deal with how we can cleanse ourselves from spirituality. And he says, that know that the greatest pain afflicted to man is the lust of the stomach, and it is because of this that Adam and Eve were rejected from the abode of tranquility. In truth, the stomach is the fountain of lust and the source of ailment and evil, and its cravings are followed by the craving of sex for men and women. These two strong cravings. He says that it is the reason for the excruciating pain of man. The pain that you experience in life is all from an unchecked hawa. Hawa is your internal desire. And Ibn al-Jawzi, rahimahullah, in his book Tibb al-Ruhani, which is, they translate it as Disciplining the Soul, which is not correct, but anyway, that's the name of the book, Disciplining the Soul. The actual should be named Spiritual Medicine. That's what he called it, Tibb al-Ruhani. He said, hawa is the inclination of one's nature to what suits it and should not be criticized when what is sought after is lawful. Okay, so hawa, when it's in line with that which Allah made permissible, is completely fine. There's nothing wrong with hawa, right? But when he said what is wrong is it is criticized when it indulges in it excess. So indulging in hawa in excess is what is criticized by Imam Ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah ta'ala and the scholars of Islam. So the natural hawa, I want you all to listen to this hadith, that 3 men came to the home of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they said to the wife of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam, is the Prophet sallallahu home? She said, no, the Prophet sallallahu is not here. So they asked about the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam's life. And then when they heard about it, they said, look at the Prophet and look at us. So look, it comes from shaitan and someone's false ideology and thinking. False ideology and thinking. And what happened to them? They started saying, if this is the Prophet, we need to go in excess. We need to go in excess. That he is the messenger. Okay? So they said, we will, one of them said, I will pray constantly, and I will not sleep at night. So mashallah, like extreme zuhd. One of them said, I will fast always, I will never break my fast, meaning he would fast every single day. And one of them said, I will not marry. I'm going to hold myself only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So again, all of these are desires. These are natural desires. To eat, to sleep, to pray, to have intimacy, right? And the Prophet ﷺ, when he heard about them, subhanAllah, and look at the beautiful nature of Rasul ﷺ, he never called out someone. He didn't say these people are wrong and you shouldn't listen to them and they're completely mudil and dalal and all this other stuff and they're off of the thing and they don't. This is not the hadith, the speech of Rasulullah. So when you see people speaking like this, know that they're far and distant from the sunnah of Rasulullah, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the Prophet brought mercy. So what did he do? He says, why do I hear people, meaning he meant in general, saying such and such? He says, I pray and I sleep. He said, I fast and I break my fast. And he says, I also married. Whoever does not follow my way of life, my sunnah, my practice, they are not from me. So this shows you that our desires are something that's natural. They shouldn't be suppressed completely. And suppressing desires is not natural and not from the fitrah, which is the natural inclination that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created. Now, I want to describe to you all, inshallah, as well, the meaning of hawa. The meaning of hawa. Okay? And the meaning of hawa, there's a great book by the great linguist, Persian linguist, whose name is Ibn Faris, named Maqayis al-Lugha. He says hawa comes from the 3-letter root hawiya. Hawiya. Ha, wa, ya. He says al-ha wal-wa wal-ya aslun sahih yadullu ala khulu was-suqut. He says that this word hawa goes back to its root called hawiya. And that root means, it has a root meaning. So everything in the Arabic language goes back to a root meaning. And this root meaning influences and impacts our understanding of this word. Okay? he said that this word goes back to a root meaning, which is khulu was-suqut. And I want you to pay attention to this. Hawa goes back to the meaning in Arabic of emptiness and falling. SubhanAllah. So the word itself, meaning it will, if you engage in your carnal desires, it will leave you empty and make you fall. Leave you empty and make you fall. So what does shaitan do? Shaitan tries to make us, لَأَغْوِيَنَّهُمْ, he said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that I will try to delude them. Subhanallah al-Azim. What's delusion? It will make you feel like there is benefit in something that will grant you contentment in it if you just engage in it. And that's what shaitan's plan is with us, deluding us. Okay? So what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say to Dawood? And in turn, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and in turn all Muslims. Ya Dawood, inna ja'alnaka khalifatan fil ard, fahkum bayna an-nasi bil haqq wa la tattabi' al-hawa. Allahu Akbar. O Dawood, I have made you a Khalifa on earth. What is Khalifa? Khalifa is a deputy, a representative of a leader and someone that will lead successive generations. This is the Khilafah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us all. And it started with our father Adam alayhi salam. وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. And when your Lord said that that we said to the angels that we will make Adam alayhi salam a Khalifa on earth. So what is this Khalifa? A person that will be a deputy and representative of a leader, someone that will come in successive generations. And what are they representing? What are they deputy of? This deen, this faith, the faith that Allah chose for all of humanity. So every single prophet after that was a Khalifa. They succeeded the prophet before it, and they're representative and a deputy of the true faith that Allah sent for all of mankind. That's what they're succeeding, one generation after the other. And that is why when the Prophet ﷺ was the final prophet, what was the next leader who followed him and was the leader of Muslims called after that? Khalifa, right? The one who succeeds the Prophet ﷺ in this message that is given to all of humanity. And that's why they're called Khulafa al-Rashidin. So anyway, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says as a direction to the Prophet ﷺ, who is the next Khalifa, right? Ya Dawood, that we said to Dawood, right? We have made you a Khalifa on the earth. We already said what's Khalifa. We have made you the representative of that true faith on this earth in successive generations. And you're going to be a leader, inshallah. And you're going to be the representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of this faith to humanity. So what should you do? Two conditions of this Khilafah. Number one, فَحْكُمْ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ بِالْحَقِّ. Right? Do not, judge between people with justice. So this faith came with ultimate justice. We believe that ultimate justice is in the faith that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to humanity. That's ultimate justice. Because human beings can't equally judge on each other. Where's the judgment going to come from when it's equality? From the Lord Almighty Most High. And then the second, وَلَا تَتَّبِعِ الْهَوَىٰ. Do not follow your desires. That it will misguide you from the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَضِلُّونَ عَنْ فَيُضِلَّكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَضِلُّونَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ شَدِيدٌ بِمَا نَسَوْا يَوْمَ الْحِسَابِ. This is Surah Sad, chapter 38, verse 26. The end of it is, it will lead you astray from the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Indeed, those who go astray from the way of Allah will have a severe punishment for having forgotten what? Their account. So what will Hawa do? Will make you forget accountability because of delusion. Now, what are some of the spiritual cures? Before we get into that, I want to also just finish this aspect of Hawa, because it's a very interesting concept, okay? So one of the names of hellfire is actually Hawiya. And it's very powerful. Why is it called Hawiya? Hawiya means the never-ending pit. Just like Hawa will leave you empty, one of the names of hell is called Hawiya, which is a never-ending empty pit. Subhanallah. May Allah Azza wa Jal protect us from Hawiya. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this in the Quran itself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this in the Quran itself, where he mentions that people will fall into, فَأُمُّهُ هَاوِيَةٌ, will make their mother the hawiyah. Their mother, they say, is considered the your mind or your head, the thing that you engaged in so much in all of these things, whether it's good or bad. For those people who will be wretched and miserable, that the only mother that they will have, that they engage their mind in, will be hawiyah, a never-ending pit of hell, which is empty. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us, inshallah. So how do we deal then with addictions? How do we deal with addictions? So this is something very important. The Prophet ﷺ has said, how do we deal with it? You have to control your addictions before your addictions control you. And it requires riyadat al-nafs, which is a form of struggling and striving in order to fulfill a goal and to rid yourself of vices. So it requires, as our teachers mentioned, it's either mukabada or mukabara. Mukabada is striving and struggling against yourself in order for you to reach the lofty level Allah gave us. Or if you don't, the opposite is mukabara, arrogance. Arrogance of not accepting. I don't need it. Don't tell me. I don't need to fix myself. Why don't you go worry about yourself? And that's why the Prophet ﷺ says the worst of people is that when they're told ittaqillah, they said alayka nafsak. May Allah protect us. This is hadith of Rasul ﷺ. They said the worst of people is that when they're told be conscious of Allah, fear Allah, they say to them back, go worry about yourself. Go worry about yourself. Okay? And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that the worst of people also are people that come to others with dhul wajhain, two faces. One face to a group of people and another face to others. And this has to do with, obviously, a lot of engagement in these kind of things. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِنَّ مِمَّا أَخْشَى عَلَيْكُمْ شَهَوَاتَ الْغَيِّ فِي بُطُونِكُمْ وَفُرُوجِكُمْ وَمُضِلَّاتِ الْهَوَىٰ. Listen to this. It's narrated authentically in Musnad Imam Ahmad, and it's narrated by Abu Barza radiallahu ta'ala anhu, who reported that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, what I fear for you are seductive temptations in your stomach and private parts. Exactly what Imam al-Ghazali said. So Imam al-Ghazali is not just coming out of thin air, it comes from, of course, the hadith of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. And he says, and the misguidance of your desires. What is misguidance? When it's used in other than Allah has allowed for us. And what will shaitan make you do? In deluding you, he will make you feel like the value of what you're engaging in is so great that you're going to miss out on it. Does that sound familiar to you? That's exactly what Neil Postman said, right? The idea of the fear of missing out, and Dr. Cruz, right? When you have an addiction, what happens? If I don't engage in this, I'm going to miss out. If I don't engage in this, I'm going to feel unhappy, or I need to just engage in what will make me happy, and that will bring me contentment. This is all from shaitan. And I'm going to share with you a story. Maybe some of you can do this, by the way. Maybe Shuraim, you can do this, film this, and see what happens in Nigeria. So what happens is in America, what they did is they wanted to do a social experiment. What's the experiment? They had a stand, okay, with two cakes, a stand on the right and a stand on the left. The stand on the right had a sign with a cake. The sign says $55. And the stand on the left had a cake with a sign that said $15. Okay? So there's two cakes with a sign. One says 55, one says 15. People would pass by. They don't know they're being filmed. And what happens is they say to them, which one do you think is better? We're starting a business. We want to know your opinion. You're going to get free cake. We just want your opinion. That's all we want. We're going to write down your opinion. So what they do is they give them the $55 cake first. So when they eat the cake, what do you think they said? Man, what an amazing cake. They say subhanAllah. They say that it's amazing. It's so moist. The frosting, the presentation. They start praising this $55 cake. Okay. And then they give them the $15 cake. When they give them the $15 cake, what do you think they said? They said, oh, what is this? This cake is so dry. This cake doesn't have any taste. Some of them said, this is the worst cake I've ever had. Okay. And then they're told that after that, the reality, which is The cakes are exactly the same. The cakes are exactly the same. There's no difference between the two cakes. Okay? What was the difference? The difference between the two cakes is only the sign, the perception of value. So people who thought this cake is $55, they thought they're going to enjoy it more. And versus the $15 cake, they're like, this cake isn't worth as much, so obviously it's not going to taste as good. So some people, when they're told they're exactly the same, you know what they do? They actually denied it. They're like, it's impossible. It's impossible. I actually physically taste that they are different. That they are different. So they found out something very powerful, my brothers and sisters, which is the point of this whole story. They found out that our human minds can actually be programmed to find perceived value in things which don't have that necessary value and are in reality a false perception. Allahu Akbar. A false perception. And you know what? This is exactly what Shaitan said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he will do with human beings. And this is in Surah An-Nisa, verse 118 down. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that Shaitan, when he was being kicked out, what did he say? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes that conversation. لعنه الله وقال لأتخذن من عبادك نصيبا مفروضا ولأضلنهم ولأمنينهم ولآمرنهم فليبتكن آذان الأنعام ولآمرنهم فليغيرن خلق الله ومن يتخذ الشيطان وليا من دون الله فقد خسر خسرانا مبينا يعدهم ويمنيهم وما يعدهم الشيطان إلا غرورا. This is chapter 4, verse 118 to verse 120. Listen to the amazing nature of the Quran. Allahu Akbar. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لعنه الله, Allah cursed him. When somebody's cursed, that means they're distant from the mercy of Allah. For he said, meaning Shaitan, I will surely take from among your servants a specific portion. I will try to lead them away, this portion of them. What will he do? I will mislead them. I will arouse in them false perceptions and engaging in their desires. Is to delude you with your desires. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. This is exactly what Shaitan said. And then he says, وَلَآمُرَنَّهُمْ فَلْيُبَتِّكُنَّ آذَانَ الْأَنْعَامِ. And I will command them and they will slit the ears of cattle. What does this mean? The scholars, they said that even human beings will try to change the state of animals for their own benefit, right? And what do you see now? What they found out recently is that all in medicine, modern medicine, a lot of the cancers that are happening is because of genetically modified animals and the food that we're feeding them in order to fatten these animals up, giving them steroids, giving them all of these kind of preservatives in food. And what is this doing? It's giving us cancer, brothers and sisters. And that's why one thing I appreciate about Nigeria, mashallah, you, alhamdulillah, for the most part, have access directly to organic food that's still growing. Please keep that. For some of you, make sure that you focus on preserving the state of organic and food that is healthy. Otherwise, it will change not only the state of the food, it will also give us cancer. This is from Shaitan. That's mentioned in Quran. Subhanallah. And then he says, وَلَآمُرَنَّهُمْ فَلَيُغَيِّرُنَّ خَلْقَ اللَّهِ. And this is also powerful. I will command them and they will change the creation of Allah. Subhanallah. I want you all to focus on this. Change the creation of Allah. What? Because a sense of lack of self-worth. Because a sense of feeling that you need to be better and look better. So the number one surgery right now in the world is what? You think it's like heart surgery or kidney replacement? No, you know what it is? The number one surgery is temporary, semi-permanent or permanent plastic surgeries. And why complexionism is a very real problem. People think that being light-skinned is better. So they wear creams that make them lighter. And this kind of, this intense form of makeup which makes a woman seem lighter or lighter. This is all complete nonsense. It's from Shaitan. And that's why the first racist and supremacist was Shaitan. He looked at Adam and he blamed Allah. He says, why did you create me this way? Right? You created me from fire, you created from clay. Which one's better, fire or clay? Neither. Neither are better than the other. If you take a pile of dirt and you throw it on fire, what will it do? It will take out the fire. And if you take fire, you light up some dirt, what happens? It becomes hard. So neither of them are better than the other. That's what racism will do. My tribe is better than you. My nation is better than you. My color is better than yours. My language, this is all shaitan. You're following the spiritual progeny of shaitan if you have this belief. If at any point you think you're better than someone because of anything, there is nothing that makes someone better than the other except what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. That the most noble of you in the sight of Allah, God Almighty, is the most righteous. And here he said atqakum, the ones who reflect about and are conscious and mindful of their Lord the most. These are the best. So in any case, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues by saying, whoever takes shaitan as an ally instead of Allah has indeed become one of the great losers. Shaitan promises them and arouses desire in them. يَعِدُهُمْ وَيُمَنِّيهِمْ. Promises. Look, if you just engage in this addiction, it will give you happiness and contentment. وَيُمَنِّيهِمْ. Again, an emphasis again on the fact that he will lead them astray with their desires and giving them false perceptions. You think the $55 cake is better. You think that this person's life is better. You think that this person who's, again, Instagram is a big performance. Everyone only shows the best version of themselves. Do you show on Instagram what you look like when you wake up in the morning? MashaAllah, with all the filters? No matter how many filters you take, it won't make you look nice. Okay? So, do you put on Instagram when you're mad and yelling at one of your family members? Do you put on Instagram when you have an argument and when you're saying rude things? Do you put on Instagram when you're not living to Islamic akhlaq? Of course not. So only when we see what's on Instagram, it builds us this false perception Shaitan wants to build in us. Look at what they have. Look at what I don't have. Look, I want to be like this person. I want her body. I want his body. I want to, all of these kind of things, and false perceptions, false desires. So you're chasing the $55 cake and forgetting the $15 cake. The cakes are exactly the same. They were made in the same oven by the same chef with the same ingredients at the same time, and they are the same thing. But the false perception is what leads our addictions. And we will end with this portion, inshallah. How do we deal with these addictions? Number one, you have to have spiritual response, and that is by reading our books of spirituality. Books of spirituality will help you to understand how to discipline your soul. And that is why, again, amazingly, there's a book by Ibn al-Jawzi, the great Hanbali scholar, which is called Disciplining the Soul. Look it up online. You can find it. And books by Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah, and Ibn Taymiyyah, and Ibn Rajab, and Imam al-Nawawi, and Imam al-Ghazali, and Imam al-Qushayri, and Imam al-Muhasibi. All of these books, all of them have beautiful ways of engaging with our souls and refining them. If you think that you will suddenly come across this, or this will something that's built on simple knowledge, and this is why Imam al-Ghazali said, the one who thinks that will reach spirituality without striving is a fool. And that is why I want to teach you all something, my brothers and sisters. The more knowledge you gain, you will realize this knowledge will not perfect your character unless you practice it, unless you do what they call riyadatun nafs. Riyada is literally spiritual fitness against your ego. So if you're not holding yourself back from responding to your spouse or your parent, or you're attacking and getting into arguments, right? You will find that your character actually becomes worse the more knowledge you gain. Why? Because again, a person becomes spiritual children of Shaitan. Shaitan had knowledge, he did not implement it. Shaitan knew everything that the scholars of Islam even know, but he did not have ilm. Ilm is when it's accompanied with amal. He only had ma'luma. He only had information. So in Arabic, it's not called knowledge even until you implement it. So the more information you have, and you don't implement it and refining your character. When the Prophet ﷺ said, the best of you is the one that leaves argumentation. Where is that practiced in our life? The Prophet ﷺ says, the best of you are those who give good news and bring people and their hearts closer to Islam. Not bashiru wa la tunaffiru. Not making them further from Islam by being harsh-hearted. This is kufr, this is shirk, attacking people. Rather than saying in a nice way, hey, we shouldn't attach our hearts to other than Allah. Look at this beautiful dua the Prophet ﷺ mentioned. right? So instead of using these harsh words, attacking people, do you think anyone's heart changed if the Prophet ﷺ stood in Mecca and started yelling at those people? No. In fact, I want you to understand something. It's mentioned in the tafsir of Surah Al-An'am. One day Abu Jahl came and the Prophet ﷺ shook hands with Abu Jahl. Safahahu. Why? Hoping to make his heart come closer to Islam. Ya Jama'ah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Taha to Musa alayhi salam and Harun, فَقُولَ لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا. Say to Fir'aun, the worst enemy of Allah in the history of humanity, right? A nice, gentle word so that his heart may seek purity and that he may remember and come close to him. If this is for Fir'aun and this is for Abu Jahl, how can then we not deal with Muslims who make mistakes, who may be engaging in something that is wrong? I want you all to just think about this. Okay, so in that light, the last few things that I want to just share with you all is the solutions here. As we discussed, to go into the detail of reading books on spirituality and practicing it, and making sure that we read on things that will help correct us. Human beings don't like being told what to do. Human beings don't like to say that you have this shortcoming. Have a spiritual teacher. Have a spiritual teacher. Do not make your teacher Sheikh, Google, and Mufti YouTube. Not that there's not good in them. There's great good in them. But if you make your only teacher's constant digital connection, when you don't have a teacher that you can digitally connect with, what happens is it breeds arrogance. And that's exactly why Shaitan was kicked out of Jannah. Because that increased amount of information that wasn't practiced, that wasn't led to humility and saying that, yes, I am actually worse than others. How? Because you're doing it with knowledge, other people are doing it with ignorance. So when you look at yourself constantly as lower than others, not because you have a lack of pride or self-respect or you think you're not, no, what I mean by spiritual, you have humility. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will raise you. The Prophet says, "Man tawada'a lillah rafa'ahu Allah." So anyway, when it regards to with regards to dealing with addiction, there's a number of things that is very important for us to just remember and reflect on. Okay, so we have to diagnose ourselves first. Diagnosis is very important. How do you see your problem? If you think you don't have a problem to begin with, that's the first part of denial, right? If you have a spiritual addiction to pornography, if you have addiction to social media, if you have addiction to drugs, if you have an addiction to some people are very fanatic about others. I was in Nigeria when I was in a conference and I got a question saying that, ya Sheikh, is it okay for me to make dua for this particular person for me to marry? I said, don't attach your heart to other people, right? Say, oh Allah, grant me whoever you feel is best for me and loves me and takes care of me and is good for my dunya and akhirah. And that's what istikhara is. Because if you don't get this person, what will happen? You'll become dejected. And yes, this is natural, of course. But don't attach your hearts to individuals to the point of extent become shaghaf. You start like becoming crazed in your love. And it's very, very problematic. Okay. So and also look at your addiction. What is the addiction that you have? You can write it down, inshallah, and deal with it. They said addiction by the National Institute on Drug Abuse in America, they said is a chronic relapsing disorder characterized by compulsively seeking and wanting it despite adverse consequences. So people who are very, very fanatic about their aspect of that. So what is the solution here? What is the solution here? Number one, know the consequences of engaging in these addictions. Know the consequences. Okay, what are the consequences of social media usage? Like we said, irritability. You can't communicate with people. Somebody tells you go take out the trash, or can you help me with this, and you start yelling at them. Says I'm busy, or I'm this and that. So one of the things that you can train yourself is when you're holding a phone and some human being live in front of you speaks to you, put the phone down immediately. Put it down. Speak to them because they're human. Okay, and if they come to you and approach you, and it's not urgent, say to them in a very calm and nice way, "May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. Can you just give me one moment and 1 second that I have to respond to this urgent message? I'll message you or I'll get back to you right now." Or if it's most likely it's not urgent, What does shaitan do, especially in our prayers? He reminds us, hey, don't you have to respond to this message? So you get up and you start responding, you forget your dhikr, you forget your salah, you forget everything. Okay? And it's not urgent. So the sense of urgency that's created is from shaitan, right? That he says, I will delude them. So it's not urgent. Put your phone down. They can answer later. Okay? It will lessen your irritability. Control your desires. Don't let them control you. Now, another aspect is of consequences, as we all know, is, for example, in pornography. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm not harming anyone. And shaitan thinks, oh, look, it's just you. You're not committing a major sin, or you can make tawbah. In pornography, I want y'all to understand this. The scholars, they say that a person who engages in pornography has made their neurotransmitters, their chemical imbalance in their mind, where they attach pleasure to something that is digital. It's not physical. So what happens is those things are exaggerated forms of reality, and their mind then only finds pleasure in this type of exaggeration, this video, this digital idea. So then when they actually, are in position of having intimacy with a real person, they are not able to enjoy it as much as this digital image in their head. And they don't find sex enjoyable because they've caused an imbalance in their minds. And this is problematic. Okay? And not only that, it has caused so many issues as well amongst the physical nature of men and women enjoying the presence of their spouse. And that's why it's so powerful for you to know the consequence. Some people, they don't understand haram. They say Allah does not like this. Okay? So then maybe you'll understand the consequences physically and psychologically of how it can lead you to misery, where a person cannot have focus, a person cannot have, unless they engage in it. Like they said, the addiction to pornography is likened to the addiction of cocaine and heroin, to the level of addiction. And then knowing rewards. The Prophet ﷺ says, "Man yadman li ma bayna lahiyayhi wa ma bayna rijlayhi adman lahu al-jannah." Whoever can guarantee chastity is between their jawbones, meaning don't speak about others, don't lie, don't, with your jaw, with your mouth, and between their legs, meaning their private parts, I guarantee paradise for them, narrated in Sahih Bukhari. And the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith of Ibn Hibban, what will cause, was asked about the most common cause that leads people to hell, and he says the mouth and the private parts. So if you protect that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant you the reward and ability. And I want you to hear this beautiful hadith. Okay? This is narrated in Hakim and al-Tabarani by Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhu, who said, "Inna an-nadhrata sahmun min sihami iblis masmum. Man tarakaha min makhafati abda'atuhu imanan yajidu halawatahu fi qalbihi." He said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, this is a hadith Qudsi. Okay? He said, Allah says, the glance is a poisoned arrow of shaitan. I want you all to just imagine the power of the hadith. The power of the hadith is the Prophet ﷺ didn't even inform us. Allah in the seven heavens, above the seven heavens, Almighty, the Creator, the Maker, He's the one who told us this directly. He said the glance is a poisoned arrow of shaitan. SubhanAllah. Allah directly told us this. Then He said, whoever lowers their gaze, Allah will give them in replacement a refreshing sweetness. A sweetness they will feel in their heart, and will be a replacement for whatever they're giving up. SubhanAllah. If you lower your gaze, Allah will give you sweetness in your heart, sweetness of faith. So that is the likeness of those two things. And lastly, my brothers, my sisters, among the things that we need to do is, as the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, that the road has a right. Okay, what does it have anything to do? The road has a right, meaning when you're walking, it has rights. It has the following rights. That إياكم والجلوس في الطرقات. Don't sit in the road where people are driving and walking. Don't sit. It's not allowed for you. Okay, unless you're sitting in a place where you're not bothering. Don't sit in the middle of the road. Okay, and if you have to sit in the streets, then sit on the right of the streets, on the side of the street, right? And he says غض البصر, lower your gaze when you're in the street. Meaning what? Don't just be looking at everybody and their belongings and their things like that. If there's something that attracts you, lower your gaze. Otherwise, it's normal. You don't close your eyes and you just walk your head down. That's not what's meant. That means if something is attracting you, don't have this eye that constantly seeking to look at these things. And I want you all to, the Prophet, let me finish the hadith, and say, وَكَفُّ الْأَذَى, and to stop from harming others. وَرَدُّ السَّلَامِ, and to give salam to people. Sometimes we don't give salam to except those we know. This is not from the etiquette of Islam. Salam should be given to everyone, those you know and those you don't know. This is the sunnah of Rasulullah. And he says, وَأَمْرُ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, and if you see something wrong and you see somebody that needs to act, you command them, you enjoy them to do some good. And nahi anil munkar, and to prevent harm from others. So if you see somebody harming others and also doing sin, you try to, again, engage them in the nicest way as possible. I want you all to remember this hadith, because what does it have to do with the road? Because we have highways, right? Highways. And then we also have the information superhighway, which is the internet. That is also a road we're engaged in and walking on. So when you're in this road, similarly, lower your gaze. When we talk about lower your gaze, it's from things you find attractive. So when you find something attractive, you move your gaze from it, right? Why don't we spiritually do that as well? Lower your gaze from this dunya, my brothers and sisters. Lower your gaze from wanting what's materially you don't have. Be content with what Allah has given you, but also strive to always better yourself. Educate yourself. Get investment opportunities. Invest in business, entrepreneurship. Love others, help others, okay? But don't be envious of what they have. Don't look at the $55 cake in their hand and forgetting that the cake is the same, right? And what happens is we don't indulge then in the addictions that we have, and seek professional help if you need it. If you need professional help for some of your addictions, there's a beautiful website done by a friend of mine called Purify Your Gaze. It has to do with Islamic helping with people who deal with pornography. You can go on that website, inshallah, and sign up. They will help you and coach that person to get rid of their pornography addiction. If a person has addiction to bad friends, right, toxic people, you have to enact a level of leaving that society, that presence or that environment. I want you to understand, if you think that you have a self-control, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَتَّبِعْ خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ, do not even follow the footsteps of shaitan. What is that? People think that they have self-control and they fall into sin. Don't do things that will lead you to the sin and the addiction. So for example, if you know that you're going to be going to a place where there's going to be this person that you engaged in sin with before, why would you put yourself in that situation and think that I'm going to survive? You're not going to survive. Allah Alam. Don't trust yourself, your nafs. So always trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and don't engage in the things that will lead you to the addiction. Cut it off from the beginning. So if you know, for example, if you go to a particular site or if you go to a particular place, this will lead you to that. So cut time from that, step away from that, right? And a lot of it has to do with control. And this is from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, of the man who killed 99. He killed 99 because he was in a place which was a place of fasad, an environment of fasad. So at the end, when he killed the 100th man, a scholar finally told him, leave the environment of sin and go to the environment of righteousness. So if you think that your friends are the ones that are building bad addictions and habits with you, find better friends. It's okay for you to separate yourself from people in order to have a better relationship, and also to influence them in a good way and not have them influence you in a bad way. It's okay to separate yourself if you're being influenced in the wrong way. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless all of you. This is now, alhamdulillah, about 1 hour exactly. May Allah Azza wa Jal bless and protect you all. And jazakumullah khair for your invitation. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us overcome with the spirituality, our addictions and our sins and everything that we may be engaged in that is not pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I implore you that you read the books of spirituality, among them Disciplining the Soul by Ibn al-Jawzi, which starts off discussing the desires that attract us or make us addicted. He talks about that in that book, inshallah azza wa jal. I'm teaching that in Ramadan intensive with the Legacy Institute right now. So for those of you who want to sign up for that, you can still. But in any case, use this month of Ramadan where we can engage more with our spiritual selves, to remove our wants and being deluded by shaitan and the $55 cake. Okay, remember that example will always help you, inshallah azza wa jal. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you. Jazakumullah khair for Shuraim and the brothers and sisters at the academy for inviting me and graciously hosting me. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala sahbihi ajma'in. Subhanallahi wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remove the sickness from Nigeria, remove sickness from our hearts physically and spiritually, remove the pandemic from all of the world, allow us to come out of Ramadan purified from sin, purified from addictions, purified from things that are bad character. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those that implement what we say in our actions, not just say it in our speech. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those that are, when they see us, they see the example of our beloved Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a mercy to mankind, with the way we are, with the way we deal with others.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. جزاكم الله خيرا شيخنا وبارك الله في حي الله وبياك حبيبي. SubhanAllah, this was a beautiful session. So inshallah, not to waste more time, I'll just take a few questions. The first question here is, Assalamu alaikum. I'm addicted to masturbation and I really want to stop. I try to avoid it, but at all times I find myself in the act and I really feel terrible afterwards. Will Allah forgive me for compromise, for promising to stop and failing again and again and again?
Okay, this is, thank you, first of all, Jazakumullah khair for your earnest and honest question. We like honesty and we like to deal with things in a very honest manner. That's first, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. Number two, know that the fact that you're even asking the question is a good sign. As the statement of Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu and others, that a nadim tawbah, having a sense of guilt and knowing at least it's bad, is a form of seeking repentance and forgiveness, inshallah. Secondly, that know that nothing leads to masturbation except a stimulus. Remember that what we said, if whatever is leading you to these thoughts and this addiction, you need to cut that off. So if it's pornography, that's obviously a bigger sin. If it's looking at the opposite gender that's rising these emotions, the Prophet ﷺ said, lower your gaze and take yourself away from an environment to do that. Thirdly is the one who has maturity, then should seek marriage. And that is 4 levels of maturity. You have spiritual maturity, you have psychological maturity, you have interpersonal communication or emotional intelligence, how to deal with people, interpersonal maturity, and you have financial maturity. If you have these 4 things, then you should get married, but taking into account that if a person is not ready and has not dealt with their problems beforehand, you're going to bring those problems into marriage. So if you're engaged in these addictions and you haven't solved them within, don't think that marriage is going to solve them. Marriage is not going to solve them. You have to solve them first, right? Marriage will help to protect you once you've dealt with your own problem. And that's something I want to get across to everybody. When we're saying let people get married young, I don't agree with this necessarily. Let people get married young when they've reached the level of maturity, right? So when person is trained, when they're taught, when they learn these levels of maturity, this is the age of marriage. The age of marriage is not once you hit puberty, yallah, bismillah. This is not true. So I want to focus on that aspect because what's leading to masturbation is obviously some stimulus. So take yourself away from that stimulus. Number 2 is set yourself consequences if you engage in masturbation. For example, every time you do it, you have to give sadaqah. And then you increase the amount. Okay? So one person, they said they stopped because it got too expensive to do it. So this form of consequence to themselves actually made them stop. And number 3, it's okay to seek help. If you have a serious addiction, you can, like I said, you can go to Purify Your Gaze and they will help a person to combat it. Number 4 is I want you all to understand that this is a sin when a person does it and is addicted to it to the extent that all they're doing is fantasizing and then engaging in this act because it gives them temporary pleasure. And not only that, this can lead even to them losing their fast. This can lead to them missing salawat and so on and so forth. So this is all the addiction in nature to it. If a person is about to commit zina, meaning it's reached a level where if they don't engage in it, then they will commit a greater haram, then it is allowed in that particular sense only, if it's an extreme situation. But if a person is constantly engaging in, what are they doing? They're engaging stimulus from something that's haram, and then acting in this act, which will then lead to more. It's a gateway to more haram. So that's why what we should do is busy yourself with good, so that shaitan doesn't busy yourself with bad. So a lot of times when we're just idle, engage. Why are you sitting by alone by yourself? Engage in good activity. MashaAllah, Shuraim has so many programs you can ask him about that he's involved in. One of our good friends, Muhammad Rashid, the brothers and sisters from One Ummah in Abuja and Lagos, they're MashaAllah, they have so much good things that you can attend. The Masajid, Masjid Noor, have programs as well in Abuja and other places. I want you all to understand, you can't just think that, okay, I'm just going to sit here and not engage myself in khair. You don't think a shaitan has an army trying to engage you in evil? So replace things that idleness with good work. Busy yourself in dealing with orphans and helping. So when you're actually busy, what happens? You don't have time for haram. And I want to just mention this with something beautiful. Abu Sulaiman al-Darani, he said that when shaitan comes to me and bothers me, he says, I busy myself in something that will make me happy. He says, why? Because shaitan gets angry at the happiness of a believer. So when I engage and do something that makes me happy, it actually makes shaitan miserable. SubhanAllah, this is also a spiritual cure, which is to busy yourself in that which will give you contentment, helping those who are less fortunate, in a business, anything for the love of Allah. There's so much for us to do. So engage yourself in that which will keep you busy. And if you don't, get off of Netflix, get off of YouTube. This is not going to benefit you in your life. Even if I want to just emphasize on this aspect as well. So many of us are engaged in motivational talks constantly. Motivational talk. Your deen should not just be motivational talks. It's like a bomb at your heart. Boom, and then you have a spike in spirituality. And what happens when there's no more motivational talk? It goes down. What you need to engage in is substance, content, knowledge. Learn the deen deeply, tafsir, seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Learn the hadith, learn the Quran, learn these aspects of your deen. Why? Because it will give you content and it'll increase your spirituality based on knowledge, not based on someone throwing something at your heart and then boom, it gives you a spike and then lowering it. So that's why also we sometimes are addicted to motivation. Okay, that's also an addiction. You always addicted to the next greatest statement that someone makes. Rather, this is not how knowledge was. Knowledge was given by the passing of nights and days in this. So again, I think I've given you like 5 different solutions, inshallah. And again, I want to just give you some hope here, because we are all sinners, okay? And we engage in sin. The most important thing is that you constantly seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He will not punish us, وَأَنْتَ فِيهِمْ, and the Prophet ﷺ is amongst us. So the Prophet ﷺ's physical presence in the ummah was a safety. And he says, وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ مُعَذِّبُهُمْ وَهُمْ يَسْتَغْفِرُونَ, and Allah does not punish them, is not a punisher of them when they ask for forgiveness. So Abu Musa al-Ash'ari said, one of the safeties that we had in this world, he has gone. An-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, our beloved, alayhi salatu wasalam. The other safety remains. What is safety in this world? A person constantly asking istighfar, asking for forgiveness. So a man came to Ibn al-Jawzi, which we keep quoting, and he said, Ya Ibn al-Jawzi, I am tired of myself and my sinning. He said, what should I do? He says, don't tire from asking for forgiveness. Don't tire. Always ask for forgiveness, constantly. Because shaitan wants to make you feel hopeless until you stop asking for forgiveness, and then that's when you will be afflicted. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us all. Wallahu a'lam.
Mashallah, tabarakallah. So the next question, Sheikh, is in terms of some addiction, is it permissible to take drugs to stop some addictions if prescribed?
Is it permissible to take drugs to stop some addictions? It really depends on what kind of drugs, because if a person has a drug addiction, you will go to a therapy. You have to go to a drug therapy clinic, and in that drug therapy clinic, they will give you portions of the drug in order to wean you off of it. So lower and lower dosages. Also, if somebody has a smoking addiction, for example, they will wear nicotine patches and go on the program. And this is permissible. Why? Because you will engage in some form of nicotine in your body to wean you off of that drug. Similarly with other things as well, when you know you're engaged in a type of addiction, you wean yourself off. Okay? And that has to be under the discretion of a doctor. You don't just start taking pills that you want, thinking, oh, this will help me. You have to ask a doctor. So you can take pills under the discretion of a doctor only. Wallahu a'lam.
Mashallah, tabarakallah. Sheikh, the next question is, please, okay, yeah. Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khairan. Could you please list the names of the book again? So maybe Sheikh, you just message me the names of the books and I will pass it forward in the room, inshallah.
Inshallah. The names of the book are Disciplining the Soul by Imam Ibn al-Jawzi, Diseases of the Heart by Ibn Taymiyyah, Revival of the Islamic Sciences by Imam al-Ghazali, rahimahullah. Ibn Rajab has a number of books, Journey to the Hereafter, and many others. The idea is engaging in books that will talk about spirituality, inshallah.
Naam. Sheikh, I think the next question is very important. Can I recite the Quran without wearing any clothes?
Can you recite the Quran without wearing any clothes? From the adab of the Quran is that we should honor the Quran. Okay, so when we honor the Quran, being completely naked is not a form of honoring the Quran. We should wear clothes, and it's okay for you to wear the clothes that you wear at home, but also to just kind of like wear something that's decent, right? For example, if you're wearing shorts that don't cover your thighs, you should cover your thigh. If you're just sit up straight, maybe even put like a small shawl like around you, just to be presentable when we're reading the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Women do not have to cover their hair if they're reading the Quran by themselves. You don't have to do that. That's a cultural thing that has become, but it's a form of also honoring. So if you feel closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's just a cultural thing. You don't have to cover your hair. And again, the more you honor the Quran, the better it is. But I don't see it as unless it's necessary that one recites the Quran when they're absolutely naked. And also, the scholars they disliked for a person to stay naked for long periods of time. Why? Because this is not befitting. In fact, some of the Sahaba, they used to even cover themselves when they were taking a shower. Remember that they was usually outside or in a place where it's public sometimes, but more importantly, that they would be this level of showing shyness in front of Allah the Almighty. So what about when we recite the Quran? You should try to be covered, inshallah ta'ala, and that's befitting the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
All right, mashallah, tabarakallah, Sheikh. I think those were all the relevant questions for today, inshallah. We hope to have you on, inshallah.
We'll hope to see you all, inshallah, again, and may Allah make it easy for us to visit the beautiful, our family in Nigeria, inshallah, again. It is my honor, and honestly, one of my favorite countries, my favorite people, one of my favorite my people, inshallah. Allah bless all of you, protect you all, and we see you again, inshallah. So,
Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh. Assalamu alaikum. All right, alhamdulillah, that was Sheikh Hasib Noor. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him and grant him the highest rank in Jannah. Inshallah, as you all know, we're going to be having another class tomorrow where we'll be having Sheikh Asmat Hakim to continue his classes, and also on Saturday and Sunday we'll be having 2 classes. On Saturday we'll be having 2 classes, inshallah, and also on Sunday as well, bi-iznillah ta'ala, as well as Tuesday and Wednesday, bi-iznillah ta'ala. Hope to see you all there. If you haven't registered to be a student on the DYK Academy, go to my Instagram page and click on my bio, and then you'll be able to register. And if you haven't gotten any email yet, you're going to get, inshallah, pretty soon. May Allah bless you all. This is DYK Academy. I leave you all in the care of Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.